All right. Welcome to our podcast, everybody. Today we have a special treat. Ollie Cantos, my good friend. And Ollie, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, John.
Of course. I'm just going to give a very small intro because your bio is like pages long. I'm going to give a sorely short intro for you. And then we can hopefully hit more of the points as we go on. This isn't necessarily meant to be a bio, but I think some very small points are important. So I just want to say, Oli, blind since birth and born in the Los Angeles area to Filipino immigrants. Oli, you were a victim of daily bullying and taunts by other kids. Your self-confidence and self-esteem were lacking. And you didn't grow up thinking that you were going to amount to much. I think that's super powerful. And then I'm not going to say much other than you earned a law degree, you've become an attorney, and I'm skipping tons and tons of accolades there, tons of them. And also, I'll just skip to that you're the first blind person to be elected to the city council in West Covina, which is what you're doing now, one of the things at least.
Uh-huh.
And I'll just end it with this, or maybe kick it off with this, that I have to say, Oli, there's nothing more touching than watching you interact with your three adopted blind triplet boys, Leo, Nick, and Steven. That's incredible.
Aw, thanks. It's really a blast. I love those boys.
I can tell. And I want you to know, Oli, the reason we wanted to visit with you is not just because of your accomplishments that you've had in life, but it's because of who you are as a person. I see you as potentially the friendliest person I've ever met in my whole life. And you're just cool to be around. And I really want to just catch up with you, introduce you to my brother, Jeremy. And so that's, we wanted you to have you here because of who you are, and maybe get a little more personal and not quite as professional, accolades-y and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it's really good to get to be with you again, John, and to know you for all of these years. I mean, since before you had kids, you and Melissa. And oh my gosh, it's just been awesome knowing you all this time. And Jeremy, to get to meet you today is just incredible. I'm really appreciative.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really grateful too. I've honestly heard a lot about you from John and was able to read a little bit about you. So yeah, we're excited. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and I'm excited. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
And so we met when my son was either maybe just born, and he's 15 now.
Uh-huh.
And we only lived there in DC till he was, I don't know, maybe just a year or two till we moved away from there.
Yeah. You have your
Yes.
turtle. I don't know if you still have your turtle. Abraham? Lincoln. You started one of them.
Lincoln,
Wow,
yeah, you
I
were super
barely remember
close.
that.
Lincoln. Yeah.
Abraham.
I knew it was something like that.
Well, he was named after Abraham Lincoln, I think, because my wife really likes Abraham Lincoln, so his name was Lincoln.
It's a great memory. I barely remember that turtle. You didn't have him for very long, right, John?
Oof, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 years the most. He got pretty big. He was like, I don't know, the size of like a massive hamburger. Bigger than that. I don't
He's
know.
in the aquarium or that thing
Yeah.
that glass thing that he was in. So
Yeah, he's a water turtle, and he was sort of an angry turtle. He would bite people and bite other turtles when we'd give him friends, and he would hiss at us. So we were a little bit nervous with him around our kids, and they also can harbor diseases. So for that reason, we parted ways kindly.
Smart.
But yeah, Abraham Lincoln.
yeah, so for our time to go all the way back to those days, and all of us have had life change since then. I mean, that's the thing. What is so interesting, like literally a decade and a half, things change in everybody's lives. Kids who were once infants are now teenagers. People who weren't in our lives are in our lives now, or who were in our lives who aren't now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a decade and a half really makes a big. I mean, as we live life, we don't necessarily see the changes right away, but then as we look back, we're like, holy cats, wow, what in the world? Look at everything that happened.
But I love that you
Yeah,
just
for
still
sure.
say holy cats after 15 years.
It's been probably longer than that. It's probably been like like 26 years.
Oli, Oli, did you have your sons back then when you first met John?
Back then it was 15. That would have been, let's see. Yeah, yeah, because well,
Mm,
let's see. They first came into my life in 2010.
mm,
So actually I knew John, it was before then,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yes.
it was May 2010 when we first came into each other's lives, and then it
mm,
took um, a 2 year process to enable them to come to church with me, which is how they got to know everyone else in our
mm.
congregation and everything too. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
I feel
actually we've
like,
known each other longer.
yeah, I
Wow.
feel like I
Yeah.
slightly remember those days, like you showing up with these three boys, and I had no idea who they were, but I just remember seeing them with you and thinking, like, that is amazing. Like, here's Oli, the most capable person ever, and then you've got these 3 10-year-old boys who are experiencing blindness just like you are. Four of you guys walking around, navigating the spaces, saying, being friendly to everybody. Some of your sons more, or some of these boys more open and friendly than others, if I remember right. But it was the
Sorry,
coolest sight.
this is live. My dog is calling for me, so
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
and
What's his name?
this is Tommy. Hi, Tommy dog.
Tommy.
So I don't know if I messed up the lighting, but
It's fine.
just so his
Yeah.
cries wouldn't.
No, we can see him. Tommy needs
Yeah,
your attention. Nice.
yeah, that's right. Are you able
Go
to?
get
Are
him.
you guys able to still see me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Great.
Is Tommy your dog?
He is. I've had him since March the 20th, 2023, and so
Oh, he's new.
we
Mm.
lost our dog Angel, who we had for 12 years. We lost her to a coyote, and so
Oh,
Tom's a rescue.
Now
shoot.
she's an
So
angel.
yeah, yeah. So Tommy's just he always wants to be right near me. If I'm more than 10 feet away, he cries. So
Love that.
That's nice. Have a companion around.
uh-huh.
It's always
Yeah.
nice. Is
So
it a
yeah,
service dog or
no, he's just a
just your
pet.
pet? Nice.
I actually don't want a service dog because um, I like to be in control of wherever I decide to walk. I don't want to have to depend on an animal to
Yeah.
to tell me. So Tommy's just a pet.
Okay, cool. Right on.
He thinks he's a parrot on your shoulder.
He does
Yeah.
this during leadership meetings for church. He does every time I try to.
Needs a lot of
He's
love,
trying
love
to
and
steal
attention.
because it's working.
He probably hears you talking and just wants you for him.
I don't even know if he can.
That's amazing.
So yeah, yeah. I mean, so like what we were saying when it comes to the years, things change, and the interesting thing is, no matter what time we are in life, life it has its share of triumphs
Yeah.
and challenges. I mean, the challenges change and the triumphs change, but life keeps moving, and people who were in our lives 15 years ago, some of them may even have passed already, you know, and others may not have been born yet. I mean, depending, like your kids, the other kids, initial kids that you had, they weren't even alive yet.
Yeah. So I've had four
I mean, they were
since
alive, but they weren't,
Van.
they weren't here yet.
Yeah. I had Van when I knew you, and then when I talked with you just like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I was shocked that you knew all 5 of my kids' names. How did you know them? I was like, how did he even know them? Because you've never met them.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I try to keep track of my friends and how they're doing and everything. So even though I don't see people all the time, I always wish them well and think of them well and everything. And I mean, and to get to catch up with you again recently after all this time is just such a blessing because when we get, and this is true for everybody, whenever we reminisce about life with people we haven't seen, we get to look back at the things that have happened to us, and there may be instances where certain things that we thought were the biggest deal are not really a big deal now, and things that weren't a big deal then are a big deal now. So I mean, that's how it is with life, where with whatever we go through, we always have reasons to celebrate, and we have especially great reasons to progress, and our families grow, our lives change. But regardless, uh, what's important for all of us is to be inspired by one another and our life stories, and to recognize that we're foreordained to be in each other's lives. And, uh, and when people are seen for the blessings that they are, then it invariably means that we become better people by serving them. And then on top of that, through our own service, we get to grow. And in growing, it prepares us for bigger stuff. So I mean, it's just a big life, just a big series of actions that enable us to progress one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, you've accomplished a lot. You mentioned the word triumphs. What do you think's one of your biggest triumphs?
Well, I never thought that I'd be a dad to these incredible sons of mine. Um,
Yeah.
I I thought I'd have kids biologically, but since I've really been an outspoken guy in the adoption movement, to say that sometimes people say, well, hey, well, blood is thicker than water. Well, we say in the adoption movement, well, blood may be thicker than water, but love is thicker than blood. And what makes family family are the ties that bind. Because I know people who are part of different families who are related biologically who just can't stand each other, to be honest. And there are
Yeah.
other people who aren't biologically related who are super, super close. So then the question is, well, what makes family? Is it just biology, or is it more? And I believe it's more. And children who are adopted are never by any means second class. And especially the fact is, when they're adopted, they were chosen into those families, which is a big honor, which means that they are priceless. And every child, adopted or not, is absolutely priceless. And when we do our part to make the world better by giving kids and adults the love that they need and deserve, by building them up in ways that also build up the world, then that's how we make the world stronger, and that's how we also enrich the lives of people who we interact with.
Yeah. I mean, being a parent's hard for anybody.
Yeah.
I, what's that been like for you? I mean, I know you're like the eternal optimist and you're always being super optimistic, but what are is that has that been challenging to just have three boys all of a sudden? I mean, that's a lot at one time.
Well, I just thought that when you apply an approach, then it works, and that was it. What I learned the hard way is that every kid reacts differently to the exact same circumstances. So, um, let's say, as a blind guy, and with them being blind, I have high expectations because that was what was my own life experience, where my own mom and dad, um, they they expected a lot out of me, even when I frankly didn't expect a lot out of myself.
Uh
And
huh.
so, um, therefore, I thought, well, hey, they had high expectations of me. I will certainly have high expectations of my sons. And so, when I would set a standard and say, look, yeah, you're blind, but I expect you to still do things. You still should clean your room. You should make sure to get stuff picked up. You should do whatever is appropriate for your age, as is true for other kids. And I expect you to get good grades. I expect you to be of service to the community, and I want you to learn how to be entrepreneurial and to make your own money, and also to be of service and to give away some of the money you have. I mean, just all the things that we all know well. Um, and what I realized is that when I was tough on saying, "Look, this is what is important," one kid would just go right into that, say, and work hard to rise to that. Another kid would be like, well, I don't know if I can really do that, and they'd almost shut down. And the third
Mm-hmm.
would be completely cynical, like, nah, that's not how it works. And it's like, well, it's the same family, but then they have different ways of reacting. So I had to learn that they each feel loved in different ways.
Yeah.
Um, some like one kid, if you praise him verbally, that's really means the world to him. And then another, it's a lecture. And then a third, it's like, no, what means most to me if you spend time with me,
Hmm.
you know.
Mm.
And so
Wow.
what I learned through trial and error basically is that every kid, not only is every kid unique, but even in the same family, they react differently to different things. And so by our making sure to be flexible enough to learn, then it brings out the best in them. But it takes making a couple mistakes, and there are
Mm-hmm.
times when I'd have to say to one of them like, "Hey, I'm sorry, but when I was having you shoot for this goal, it wasn't that I was being tough on you, and it wasn't that that's all I cared about, but it's because I expect a lot out of you because I know what you're capable of doing and what you're able to rise to become." And then when they realize that it wasn't that they earned their love through through meeting my expectations, but more because I love them, that I expect a lot out of them, then there was a real breakthrough. So then they knew where I was coming from, where it wasn't just, oh, I want there to be a new generation of high achievers or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
I actually wanted them to be the best of them for themselves that they can be. I
Yeah.
want Ted and want Leo, Nick, and Steven to be their absolute best selves. And the minute I learned what that was for each of them, and the way, and then and getting to embrace that, then it is amazing how they have stepped into their own power in a sense, by realizing that I love them as they are, and I also still expect a lot out of them. And so I've told them loving them and failing to have loving them and failing to have high expectations are two different things. So the worst thing, because I love them, would be to have low expectations. And sometimes, and
Mm.
Yeah.
I've told my sons this. Look, I'm here as your dad, and I love you more than words can ever describe. But I am not your friend. I'm not here to be your buddy. I'm here to guide you and to support you. But there will be times when I will tell you things that you're not going to want to hear. And if you don't like to hear it, tough. I mean, and that doesn't mean that I don't have compassion. It's because I have compassion, because I'm teaching them that the world will not coddle to them, and nor should they. We have each a responsibility to be our best and to hold ourselves personally accountable to our own highest standards. And we can't spend and waste time blaming the world for any lack of success or any obstacles we face. And even when the obstacles are real, because let's say, for example, within our context, in a disability context, they people tend to have low expectations of us, and with good reason because of our history. The unemployment rate among us is 70%.
Mm.
Most people with disabilities don't ever finish college. Out of all those born with a disability, only 7% ever get a 4-year degree. But
Wow.
the reason why those things happen is because when kids are given low expectations as kids, they don't rise to anything higher most of the time. And then because they don't rise any higher, they don't achieve much. And then because they don't achieve much, society then says, look, you haven't achieved much. Therefore, it's because of your disability. And therefore, it's self fulfilling prophecy. But I'm here to urge the world to break that cycle and to say, look, we've got to really rise to being the best that we can be. And sometimes these days, especially with kids of the younger generation, even younger than my 24-year-old sons now, there are people who say, "Oh, be your uh, be your authentic selves. Step into that power." And I've told young people these days, I'd say, look, if you if you define uh, if you define that as basically being, well, you know, if the world, if it doesn't accept me, and I feel oppressed or I feel whatever, then that's it. That's stepping into my power. And I'd say, no, it is not stepping into your power. That is not being your authentic self. Because if you think that your own success is limited by what other people think of you and by what obstacles other people put in your way, then that's not being authentic, because that is not how God made us.
Mhm.
We were created to be our very best selves with what we've got. And that's the reality. There are people who have every talent in the arts, in law, in medicine, in teaching, in science, and anything that you can imagine. But in order for that to happen, we've got to make sure to recognize that every single person has to have high standards of what they move to. And whenever things are tough, that's not a sign of saying that we shouldn't go in that direction. It's a sign that we need to be resilient and we need to learn to persist. And then if we think we can't persist, we build a support system around us to help us, and we keep at it and we keep at it, and we read more stories of more role models. We learn from them. We rinse, repeat, we refine, and we do it again and again until we get it. That's persistence. And then as we do that and as we progress, then we are stepping into who we truly are, not the other way. And so the narrative these days just seems so off whenever
Mm.
people say, oh, I've had these things happen to me, or society thinks negatively of me, and therefore I have a lower chance because of my zip code, or because of my having a disability or being a person of a certain race or any of that stuff. And my whole way of thinking is, well, whatever the obstacles, buck it up and get going. Like, do what you have to do to move ahead, and do it in a way that, in a spirit of entrepreneurialism, embraces creativity and love and caring and sacrifice, and all without apology, so that when we ultimately grow to become successful, we can celebrate that. And whenever other people are successful in their own ways, we celebrate that. The whole myth that some people have these days is like the law of scarcity. Like, oh, if you're successful, that means I can't be successful. Whoever said that? We're all successful. We all can be successful in our own right as we define it, whether it's higher income or higher impact or both, or whether it's whatever it is we define for ourselves. But the most important thing is that we do it from a place of love and self accountability. If we can take on that skill and we really embrace it, then we really rise and things really, really, really take off. And that's what we found in our family to be the case.
Love that. Wow. I just need to package you up and take you with me wherever I go to stay motivated. Do you want to adopt me too?
Yeah,
I already did. You're a brother in spirit.
Okay, good. I just need to call you more often.
that's amazing. Wow. Honestly, I would just say amen. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you can I ask, like, where did you get this mindset? Like, how did you adopt this? Because I just see, I feel almost embarrassed. I was telling John about, as I read about you and about what you've done, it's almost like, man, I have like literally nothing to complain about. I was blown away at you and what you've done and how you've done it. And I just wonder, how did this come about? Because as I read some stuff, it sounded like you weren't always that way and you had struggles obviously as a kid. What helped you overcome those things, and how did you become what you are today?
Well, when I was 21 years old, on TV, I saw this infomercial about this program called Personal Power by Tony Robbins. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, I want that, whatever that is. And those people who have this success with whatever it is, I want to learn how to do that stuff and to be that way. So for Christmas, I asked my mom and dad, they literally said, well, what do you want for Christmas? You're going to be 21 next year, but now for this year, what do you want for Christmas? That kind of thing. And I said, well, I want that. And it was somewhat expensive at the time. I just said, I absolutely, if I have to save for it or whatever, I absolutely want that for a gift. And they got it for me. And it changed my life because I learned all sorts of approaches that I still use to this day, like how to maximize pleasure and minimize pain by associating pleasure with action and associating pain with inaction. That eliminates procrastination. And how do we change? How do we reframe our lives so when adversity happens to us, it's meant to teach us stuff as opposed to holding us back? So then, how is that used as a springboard to move forward? And I changed that use of words, of how we characterize our lives and how we envision in our minds. Like sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm barely keeping my head above water." I mean, that's an awful imagery. But what if we were to change that mindset and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm rising every day. I'm rising every day." and I'm like an eagle, it's rising, And so when we change the literal way we think based on what we say to ourselves and each other, and when we back that by action and trial and error, then that's really what does it. And so over the years, I refined it, and there's some specific steps that I learned to keep myself in the right frame of mind. And even with adversities that came after I got that program, like law school was hard. I had a
I
lot of
bet.
self doubt. It's all these things that happened, in my life, that so we still had the trial of, like we all do. I still had trials, but because of learning relatively early in my adult life, that it does come down to not just a mindset of being positive, but a literal methodology for making things better. Then when I applied that in my life, it got easier and easier, so that when I reached higher levels, I still had challenges like we all do, but the challenges were at a different level. And so, um,
Wow.
yeah, it's wild. I mean, so
Nice.
eventually, when I worked for the president, like the challenges were way big there. So I'd go home and I'm like, Mom, the president needs this, and we have to advise him on this. What do I do? And then and then she's like,
You're talking about the president of the United States.
yes,
POTUS.
that's right, the president of the United
So we
States.
just jumped from law school to POTUS. Got it. Cool. Okay. I don't know how that happened, but yeah. Wow. That's
Yes,
incredible.
What kind of things were you advising the president on?
on domestic policy. I was associate director for domestic policy. Um, so it's the White House Domestic Policy Council, and I was at the Justice Department Office of the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the time, and so they brought me in to serve in that capacity, and I had a multi-billion-dollar portfolio that covered aspects of healthcare, employment, uh, government benefits, commerce, uh, business development. It was wild. It was
Does that
unbelievable.
does that
Better.
make you?
Oh my gosh.
Sorry to cut you off. Does that make you nervous at all? Like, it's a big portfolio. There's a lot of responsibility. Do you don't seem like the kind of guy that gets nervous to me. You're just sort of like always optimistic. Did that make you nervous? Do you remember?
Petrified every day. It's just like,
Okay, good.
if I make a mistake, it's like, oh my gosh, you messed this up for millions of people. I mean,
Uh-huh.
but there are a lot of checks and balances, of course. It's not like it's
Yeah.
all me. There's a whole large team of hyper competent, super high achieving people that make government work. And I was
Yeah.
grateful to be a part of that. But I honestly, on days I had imposter syndrome. Like, gosh, like if they realized that I don't know if I'm really all this, like that whole But I mean, we all do that,
Yeah.
And so I had my kitchen cabinet of different people who advised me with my life, and they're like, "Yeah, do you feel all these doubts?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Good. That's what keeps you striving harder. Good. Glad." Here I was expecting sympathy, like, "Oh, so sorry, you'll be fine." They're like, like one of my mentors. He's like, "I'm glad you have those doubts. Hold on to those. Good. That means you're not gonna become really arrogant, thinking that you're all that, because you can always go to higher levels. So leverage those doubts to work harder and to work smarter and to bring more people to your side to advise you, and make sure that it's a team effort." So I mean that's the other part of it, leveraging things in ways that people don't expect. In terms of like the doubt that I had, my mentors showed me how to leverage my doubt in the right direction. They didn't even say don't have the doubt. They're like, okay, you have the doubt, so use it. Or I'm in
So
pain for something, use it.
so when you have imposter syndrome feelings, like everybody does,
Hmm.
you who do you turn to? It sounds like you're mentioning you've built in some intentional mentors, or is
Oh
there
yeah,
somebody else you sort of turn to?
I have mentors for every part of my life. I have my faith community that we share,
Yeah.
and that's really really super super important to me. And I'm I become more of a religious person every day because I see the blessings of God, and that's a big part of my life, my spirituality. I also have my financial advisors, people who help me. I have legal advisors. I have personal development I mean, I have people for pretty much every part of my life who help me on different things based on what they're strong at. And it to me, being able to have people at my side who I can just call upon, it just saves so much time. Like, why should I waste my time making the mistakes that they've made if they can just tell me, here, don't do it
Yeah.
this way, do it this way? And I'm like, oh yeah, 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 that makes sense. I've saved so much money by not making so many costly mistakes that they've made. And I've also made costly mistakes because of not having advisors at my side at that time like I do now. So, I mean,
Mm.
it's not that I'm anyone special. We're all special, but it's more a matter of our of a very conscious decision to recognize that I know what I don't know, and I also know that there are things that I don't know that I don't know. So
Unknown unknowns.
exactly, and so there are people in different parts of my life, and I strive to be that for other people. I mean, on anything. I mean, every year I have income goals. I have other things that I want to do better at. I have spiritual goals. There are things that I want to do where I don't want to fall short. And I always feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not being as effective, or I should be better at this or that. There's always stuff, but the people who are closest to me in my life say, "Good." Always have that feeling that there's more, because there's always more growth to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of our eternal progression, to be strong and to grow. And even when we have really awful moments of adversity, of extraordinary loss, um, uh, those losses, with those losses, we have a sense of contrast, so we know what happiness is. I mean, how are we going to know what happiness is if we don't know what sadness is? And
Mm.
so, not that I love the sadness, I absolutely hate that. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I have seen, only in looking back, not at the time, but I've seen in looking back how the really sad moments paved the way for some really really major shifts in my life that continue to pay dividends to this day.
Wow.
I just want to ask Ole, as a blind person, is there anything particularly hard, like getting around physically outside, or introductions with people, or is there anything that comes to mind that you think is extra hard?
I guess the hard thing is always having, not having to, but encountering people who don't know what to think of or do with a person who's blind.
Uh huh.
Mm.
Uh, I I
A first time introduction.
Yeah, I mean, like, if people have never interacted with a blind person before, it's like, well, what do you do? What do you say? Do you say anything different? And especially these days, because of that whole political correctness thing, people are so afraid to ask something because they're like, oh, I don't want to be offensive and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, oh, forget the political correctness. What do you want to know? Yeah, I can say the word blind. Blind is blind. So what? It's not offensive. And they're like, what? It's not offensive? I'm like, all blindness means is you can't see. That's it. It means I cannot see. It doesn't mean I can't work, can't accomplish, can't raise children, can't have a dog I love, like all that, like whatever it is. All it just means is it's just a physical, it's a definition of a physical trait. That's all it is. But sometimes the hard thing is having to prove myself to people again, and then, or in the kind of role that I have, with my professional life, I prove myself to people, and then they end up leaving, and then I have a new set of people to report to who I have to
Mm.
prove myself to again because they don't know me
Yeah.
before. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just went through this, and that's
So
do it again.
what would be your advice? So you're one of the hardest things you deal with is the intrepidation, is that the right word, of people that
Trepidation.
the trepidation of the people who approach you, and it's awkward or it's hard for them. What advice would you have for those people to make the interaction better?
I just say, just be yourself, and if you have questions, ask.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, how are they going? How are people going to know without asking? And that doesn't mean that I'm able to answer every blindness question, because depending on
Yeah.
my experience is different from other people's,
Mhm.
and so just recognizing that I'm one, and I'm not representative necessarily of our whole community. I'm me, just like you guys are you yourselves. One person doesn't represent everybody, but what I hope
Yeah.
to be is at least an illustration of what is possible. I mean, people are like, well, I mean, how well can blind people do? Well, blind people can do really well. We can do well financially. We can do well by by the impact that we have. We could do well with being successful with raising our children. We can be great sons, in other people's cases, daughters to our parents. We could do a lot of things. And the best part is that there's no limit. I mean, like sometimes people are like, oh, I worry about the other shoe dropping because things are going so well. I'm like, run with it. Like run hard, like enjoy it, like make the best of it, and enjoy it for what it's worth, because it'll take you to a whole new level. And the more we think about what we want, not what we don't want, law of attraction, the more we think about what we want, the more we get what we want, because it's what we focus on. And that crosses all religions, all political ideologies, whatever. We've got to recognize the importance of that, as well as the need for us to build on commonality. These days, things are so polarized on a number of fronts: religion, sports, politics, race, gender, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like all, disability, all kinds of stuff. But like, we don't have to have it be that way. But it starts with each of us doing our part to build bridges with people around us, including people with whom we don't necessarily agree with on everything. We need to find that commonality, and we build on that. And when we do that, it really just even building on that commonality in and of itself, that's already more than a full-time job alone, let alone things we don't agree with.
Yeah.
So I found that appreciating people in a genuine way for who they are and what they have to offer is the way to build real meaningful partnerships in ways that strengthen working relationships and friendships to the degree that it literally lasts for decades.
I love that, Oli. I have to admit something. So you're a councilman, you're in politics, you're in government, stuff like that, and I've sort of over the years become I don't want to say apolitical, but the polarization that I experience in it with politics and the meanness and especially online social media turns me off in a really big way. It makes it really hard for me to want to be around it.
Uh-huh.
So I guess I need some inspiration from somebody who isn't scared of government and politics. Maybe.
Well, the key is to focus again on, like, there people have opinions on everything. So if it gets people to a really tough place where they like, well, I can't talk to you because you're
Yeah.
this is how you feel about this, then I can't be friends with you. I mean, I've literally seen people break up their friendships over their philosophical disagreement on one issue or another issue. I've seen it. Somebody
Yeah.
for maybe 7 years, she literally wrote to me. She's like, well, because of who you support, I don't can't be friends with people who support somebody like that. And I'm like, well, what did I
Mm.
ever do to you? Like I've always supported you. I helped you and stuff. And fine. If then that means we never really had a friendship. So forget it, and that was it. And then
Yeah.
recently I reunited with her again. And I just said, well, hi, just wanted to check on you. And she's like, I thought you hated me. I'm like, oh, I thought you hated me. You're the one who said you didn't want to join this friendship. And I got mad because, here you are saying that when I've never done a thing to you. And she's like, I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry, but I couldn't go back to tell you I was sorry, but I'm really sorry. I said, oh, it's
Mm.
okay. And now we're good, but I mean, it's affected all of us. And so the way to get past that it's just the way we live our lives. We can stay away from all the negative stuff by just building our lives, by building our families, and working hard at our respective jobs and businesses, and then finding ways to appreciate every single person. Like I told you, John, in a recent conversation, um, with my city council election,
Yeah.
it was in an atmosphere where there, just for context for your audience,
Yeah.
uh,
Please.
our city council consists of 5 people, and so when I ran for office, 4 of them supported one of my opponents, and the fifth council member supported another one of my opponents. So none of them wanted me there, not one. And then so the one who was supported by 4 of my opponents, I mean four of the council members, I won him by more than 10 percentage points with the election and voting results.
Mm.
And then the person who was supported by the fifth council member, I won her by more than double her votes. And that's after they spent almost $100,000 really trashing me and mischaracterizing who I am as a person and my integrity and all kinds of stuff. And so
Wow.
I came in really, there's no basis for trusting anybody. Like all of you tried to destroy me, and now I won, even in spite of all of your efforts and efforts of the people you supported. So I don't really know if I'm in a mood to be collaborative. But what I did was, that's how, honestly, how I felt. But then I literally prayed about it. It's like, okay, well, you know, this is an opportunity now that I'm here to join my four colleagues and build real relationships of closeness, trust, and collaboration, to wipe the slate clean and to find the things I appreciated about each one. Literally, and you guys can check this. It just happened 2 days ago at the city council meeting. It was actually yesterday. Today's the 20th of 2023. On the 19th, this is actually my 1 year anniversary since I was sworn into office. And so last night, um, I said at the end of the meeting to the four of them, and then this is in all honesty and sincerity, I literally love them. And I literally said to them
Wow.
publicly at council meeting, I love you guys. You guys are incredible. The things that you do for the community, your caring and your commitment to everybody. I'm really grateful to get to serve with you. And I'm really grateful to get to be friends with you. And I'm literally friends with all four of them, even though,
How did you get,
you know,
yeah, how did you get from that point where they were doing mean things to you to a year later being able to say you loved them?
well, I started by starting from scratch and say, okay, the election's over, and I started just spending time with them, getting to know them, their spouses, their kids, their pets. I mean, I literally, with every member of the council, I know literally their families, including their pets. I know their pets by name, and I've pet their pets, I mean, and
How do you do that, Oli? Like, do you go visit them? Do you talk to them a lot? Like, how do you develop those relationships?
well, one of them who really spent a lot of time and resources against me, he reached out to really cultivate a relationship with me, and I took that opportunity. And I sat with him for 6 hours at a time and 5 hours at a time, just getting to know his perspective and
Hmm.
just getting to see. And as we're getting to know each other, I made it a point to say, well, gosh, what do I appreciate about this guy? And that's what ended up resulting. And I'm like, wow, this guy's done all these great things. And then I met his wife. I met his dog. Then eventually I met one of his other adult children, and then
Hmm.
somebody else who I got to know. She and I became really close because we had the same priorities for making the city better. And then so I really got to know her, and her husband actually said a lot of bad things publicly about me and during the campaign. And so I threw all of that out. And when he reached out and to be cordial, I took that in, and I decided to work to get to know him too. And now I'm close to him too. And then there are other people. I mean, every single one, all of them I'm close to. And it's not on the surface or a political game. I
Hmm.
literally am close to all of them. I call them, I check on them, I do whatever I can to be a support to them. And we may not always agree on policy across the
Yeah.
board unanimously. We often do, but we don't always. But just because we don't doesn't mean that we can't be close and that we don't see each other's best of intentions at heart. And that's what it's come to. And this whole approach of really seeing the good in people, it works in everything. It works in politics. It works in building relationships with nonprofit organizations, with government agencies, just individual friendships. Whenever people say things, I always work to think, gosh, whenever they said that, what must they have meant, as opposed to what is the effect it had on me? Because sometimes when people say things, they didn't mean it the way it came out, and then sometimes people
Yeah.
can let friendships go by the wayside and be derailed by saying, well, when you said that, that was so insulting and so hurtful. But if they didn't mean it that way, then I think, okay, well, what must they have meant? And then I take them at that and give them that benefit of the doubt and say, okay, well, when you said this, I'm sure you, or did you mean this? And then they verify, yeah, I really meant it this way. I didn't mean it that way. Like, okay, well, I'll give you that, and then you move on that way. Because being mad at people takes a lot more energy than forgiveness. Forgiveness is so powerful. I had to literally forgive them all. I mean, because of everything that had happened to me, and the viciousness of things, and I literally forgave every single one of them. And I don't mean on the surface. I mean literally forgive them,
Yeah.
wipe it clean, completely let it go. And it has been a blessing, one blessing after another. And I still to this day even past, I check on them and I care about them. And so I
Mm.
found that even when people can be have different opinions about different things, when we show genuine caring for no agenda, just to care about them, that's what really helps to advance things. And even at the meetings, when people come to city council and they're mad about different things, when various members of the community, they see that I really work hard to try to help them. I help them even when they're not even in my district. We're all elected by district here, and but even though we're elected by district, if anyone is within the city boundary and I can help them, I'm going to help them. I'm just
Mm.
going to. And then I
Wow.
make sure to partner up with people. And then people literally said, oh my gosh, you helped me with this. I've been needing this result for all this time. And I can't even vote for you. I'm like, well, I know you can't vote for me, but I didn't do it for you to vote for me. I did it because I
Hmm.
care. And that's it. Like no strings. You're happy, you're better off, good. That's what I need. That's what I wanted to make sure to have happen. And the only thing I ask is whenever you need something, just call me. Here are my numbers. Call me, and whatever I can do, I'm happy to do it. No strings. And they're like, what? And that's literally what's happened. And I don't ask them for anything because I don't need anything from them. I'm just happy to help. I'm here to serve. This whole council thing, it's a political position, but it's to me an opportunity to be of service, and service means service. So if we can help people, all the better. And if I can help rally other people to serve them, I'll do it.
Well, wow. I mean, it sounds to me like you are a genuinely good person. It sounds like that's your secret sauce to all this is being kind to people. And it sounds like you are an expert at, turning enemies into friends. And it sounds like you could have a lot of great solutions to a lot of the problems that I think are facing a lot of things in the country and in the world, with how to deal with people and how to deal with difficult situations and different opinions. And man, I think that's honestly, just such a great example and of how to treat people who, it's difficult, and to get along with so many people, it's hard. So that's amazing. Like, it sounds like you are a councilman that is doing the right thing in the right way. Like, man, maybe I should
Yeah.
move to West Covina.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy, you're so funny. I really I appreciate that, buddy. I mean, the fun part about all of this is that when it's all done from the heart, then the support comes. It crosses every political line. I mean, the people who I'm close to, they're progressive Democrats, they're ultra conservative Republicans, and everybody in between. They're people of every background, and
Yeah.
when they each look back to their experiences with me, it's always where they say, "Oh, he helped me with this," or there are these, and I don't announce those things. Like if somebody has something that it was a personal thing, I don't say, "Oh, I helped them" or whatever. I keep that to myself because I'm not doing it for that. I'm just
Yeah.
happy to help. Period. Because if I did it for some purpose of oh great, so let me have a picture with you to show that I did this, then it's never for them. It was for me. And then it takes away
Yeah.
that dynamic. It's like, well, you didn't really care about me. You just need it for your political thing. That's why I don't do that. It's like, well,
Yeah.
if I'm just happy to help, and then I'll move on to help the next person. And if you ever need something more in the future, just come back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm inspired. Oli, what are the chances that the United States needs a president like you? And that you would say yes.
I wouldn't take it if you gave it to me.
You wouldn't?
I wouldn't. No way. Um, I mean, Senate would be the highest I'd go, but you know,
I
um,
was gonna ask where you're headed. What are your aspirations? What's next for Councilman Cantos?
well,
But maybe that's
well,
maybe that's on the
It might be.
lowdown.
well, my big immediate thing is to make sure to do right by our city and making sure that the city's better off because of how I helped to help other people to rally and create the climate where we all make the city better together. It's never me. It's not any one of us. It's always all of us together. And if we can create that kind of atmosphere where we're a city of 110,000 people, but it feels like a small town, and kids are proud to grow up here and say, "Oh my gosh, I grew up in West Covina," and parents can say, "Oh gosh, I love it here. The neighbors are really great," and senior citizens can say, "Oh my gosh, the programs that are here are so
Mhm.
amazing." And just everybody just being happy to be together and to really be proud of our city, then I mean that's my my overarching goal, where people see us for the magnificent city on the hill that we are. Uh, Proverbially speaking, there's so much talent and skill here. There's so much opportunity here, and the more we tout that to the world, the better we all are. And so beyond that, eventually I want to run for Congress, but that's way off in the distance. It's not even anything
Nice.
close to now. Watch people watch this podcast. Oh, Ollie's going to run for Congress, and all of my congressional candidate friends are going to call her like, "Are you running?" Like, no, I'm not running.
Nothing announced yet, but
Nothing. They're like, "When
potentially,
you
yeah.
announce it next week?" It's like, "Oh my
No
God, give me a break."
announcements. All right.
Not for the immediate long future, like for years and years.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool.
This is a subject change, hopefully for the better. I mean, I don't know if it'll be for the better, but I just wanted to point out that I think it's awesome that you have your camera on. We've been able to see you perfectly the whole time. I think we take that for granted that we just have our cameras on, we can see ourselves, and you can't. But you've been doing a great job. Thank you for doing that. I noticed, I don't know, recently that West Covina had a Christmas parade,
Yeah.
and you had like a live Facebook feed, I guess you call it, and you were walking around filming, and you were showing like, here's the band, and you were showing all the different parts of the parade, and you were doing a great job of like pointing your camera to the right things, and I thought that was fantastic. And you were like walking through the streets, you were crossing over the streets, and you were meeting up with fellow council people, it looked like, and I just thought that was awesome.
Aw, thanks. I'll tell you the secret to how I did it.
Please.
I scouted it out ahead of time. I walked the route myself. I learned where everybody was. And then after I learned the route, then I did the live recording. So that way I don't end up being like, oh gosh, where am I? I'm lost.
Okay.
Nice.
So
Smart.
so I made sure to scout out where I was going. And I'm really big into cardinal directions anyway. So like, okay, I'm walking south, and then now I have to turn west, going right, and on the left to the south is this. So I had to map it out. But once I mapped it out, then I did that. But it took a little prep
So
work.
are you saying the first time you go somewhere for the first time, that's the most difficult, and then you sort of like remember paces and directions?
Well, normally I just explore, because even now, if I want to go somewhere, I just go alone. I mean, sometimes I go with people, but I don't want people to think that they have to take me. I'm happy to go with people, but if not, I'll just go by myself. And so in this case, I wanted to do a fun Facebook Live, and in order for me to
Yeah.
optimize doing it live, I needed to remember where everything was.
Okay.
And that way, when I aimed, I already knew where people were, and who knows what could have happened. It could have gone wrong, but I mean, it's part of what happens when you're live. When anything can happen, but that's part of the authenticity of Facebook Live. They don't expect it to be video perfect because it's live. Anything can happen. But I'm comfortable with doing things live, and then I pre-write the description of whatever I'm doing. I try to do it the day before, so then I have it pasted and ready. So I already have it framed in my head as to what I'm going to do. So then I just include that description in the body of the Facebook Live, and then it goes, and then we're off to the races.
That's
Wow.
awesome. Thanks for telling us your secrets.
Sure.
You can I ask, like, because when you go to a new city, for example, because I'm just thinking, you know, sometimes I'm like a little nervous to go outside. Like, honestly, like a little bit of anxiety just to like go out into the world, and like, it's easy to get lost. There's scary, like the world's just kind of scary. So I can't even imagine, honestly, doing it blind. And so when you like move, for example, like when you move to DC, how do you go about just doing any of that? Is it kind of an adventure for you? Are you excited about it? Is there nervousness about it? Like, what is the scariest thing, and how do you go about doing it? Is it just an exploration, or how
Well,
exactly do you do that?
I
a
love that
lot of it
question.
is a lot of it is exploration, but I actually have to tell you something that you guys may not know, which is where up to 4 years ago, I was able to see like only 10%. So 10% in one eye at the most.
Mm,
But I
okay.
maximum. It wasn't much, but I made the best of it. I still couldn't
Okay.
see what people looked like, all that stuff. And then I was hit by a car. And then when I
I
was
didn't
hit
know
by,
that.
Wow.
I was crossing at a green light, and I know that because the audible signal said walk sign is on to cross 6th Street Southwest. So I was walking properly, but a
Oh.
car, I was there was a car that had gone into the number 2 lane to my left, and then they turned right, and then they hit me.
Mm-hmm. Oh
It
man.
caused,
Shoot.
in the long run, it caused me to lose. Um, Out of that 10%, I lost like another 8% roughly,
Oh
and
man.
so now I'm down to 2%. So that whole thing threw me for a loop, and
Mm,
I really had to. I went into depression over that because
mm,
um,
Mm.
even though I already had my disability, and even though it's still considered blind, I mean it's 90% already blind. Um, the 10% that I had was the 10% that I knew. It was familiar to me. I've had it my whole life.
mm,
So then I lost 80% of that. I had to go through a whole
mm,
readjustment. And then there are things that I used to not have happen to me that happened to me this time where I would bump into people and trip on things, and that I
mm.
just used to not do that as much. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
it was just so debilitating in the sense of like, this is not what I'm used to. Um, and it was very, very hard. But the very same
Wow.
approaches that I told you about, I still used, and I used it again, and it got me out of that feeling. And I still cry periodically because I miss what I had. And what's
Mm,
really hard is that I still dream to the level of where I used to see. Because when we dream, it's based on what
Mm.
we perceive and our memories and stuff. So when I go to bed and I have dreams, I dream at the level of the vision I used to have. And then when I wake up and I can't see that, then it's like, oh, now I'm back
Oh.
to so every day I go through that. And so
wow.
um, it's
What that
almost,
was?
yeah,
Sorry. When was that accident you had that?
4 years ago in May of 2019.
Okay. So before that, you were functioning pretty well. I mean, you were pretty comfortable with how you did things, and then you lost that, and it became even harder,
Yep.
which I can't even imagine that. And then it
Yep.
was, wow.
It was devastating. And that's not to say that
Mm,
blindness is a problem. I had to adjust. I had to everything I had told you earlier. I had to put that to the test. It's like, okay, you have all these. Now this is the struggle of your life. You know, are you going to get up and get rolling, or aren't you? And for
Mm.
a while, I was like, I don't feel like it. I don't. I
mm,
don't.
yeah.
I don't really know if I really want to necessarily right now because I'm really feeling bad for myself, and but I still worked. I still went to work every day, and my work folks, they were absolutely incredible. But I still had a lot of personal moments of doubt that creeped in, and I, oh gosh, and well, now that I see even less, does that mean I'm now less capable? And so I went through that, but I'm like, nope, I'm still good. And so
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
really helped was service. Just diving into service, um, and going through stuff is really what really was a major help. And so when I ran for office was last in 2022, that was already after having lost roughly 80% of what I had before.
Mm,
So I
hmm.
was still struggling
Wow.
with those feelings of doubt at the same time that I was embarking on something that I'd never tried before.
Okay,
That's
so
already
diving into the service of city council and government
even
is what
running.
kind of helped you keep going and brought you out of that a little bit.
Yep. And it was
Mm.
petrifying because I'd never run for office before. I had to raise money. I had to
Wow.
walk
Yeah.
house to house to house, thousands of
Yeah.
households, and all
Wow.
that while having to do things differently. So my dad and mom would go with me when we campaign, and my dad would drive. I mean, my mom would drive, and my dad would be in the driver's seat. I mean, the passenger seat, and then we'd get out, and then I'd walk with him, and he'd take me. I used to not have to have anybody take me. I can just,
Mm,
but every house and every driveway or walkway is different, and so just to make it faster, my dad's like, well, just hold on to me, I'll just take you, and then so
Hmm.
I did that, and I just accepted that, hey, this is the time I need help with this, so I did it, and it worked out great, and so I didn't lose any. I still was able to do it fast, and but I also felt bad because at one point, when I had separated from my dad for a few minutes because I was still talking to somebody, my dad, who's he's 84 now, he tripped and he fell, and it's like, oh my gosh, my poor
Oh
dad,
man.
and it's like it's my fault, like if he didn't have to help me, or if he
mm,
didn't think he had to help me, then this that wouldn't have happened. So I felt really, really bad. Like, wow, I did.
yeah.
What if something bad could have happened to him? It would have been my fault because I did this whole running for office thing. Then all those questions again. And I just so sad and telling my dad, I'm so sorry, Dad, that this happened. He's like, oh no, it's okay. I would have, it's, I fell and got up, but I'll be all right.
Right.
The fact that they're so supportive, I'm so appreciative. And my mom, the same thing. She, along the way, when we would meet people, we'd come back and then I would tell her about what I learned about whoever, and she would take notes, and then she would type the notes out and email them to me. And then I could learn people's lives and what they need, and then I followed up with them afterwards. It's all a team effort.
Wow.
But it was all
Yeah.
amidst all of the struggle that I went through with having lost 80% of what I had personally known, vision wise.
Wow. That's amazing. I imagine you have a really good relationship, strong relationship with your parents.
I do.
What is that? How has that relationship been throughout your life?
It's been really amazing. And for different reasons. My dad is more easygoing, like things happen, they happen, it's fine. My mom is the one who's really the intense, driven one. Who, when I wanted to not do chores because I'm not able to see stuff when I was a kid, she would say, "Well, then use your hands, figure it out, find it." She's the one who taught me the whole philosophy of personal responsibility when I did not want to be personally responsible.
Yeah.
To be honest, I was a kid. I was
Yeah.
lazy. I didn't want to do the chores. Like, why should I do the chores when my baby sister doesn't have to do the chores or whatever? I just compare, or my friends got to play outside, or it takes me longer to clean things because, they could just do it fast and I have to use my hands to feel stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like slave labor and all that stuff. Like, but it wasn't. Mom's like, no, you are X years old. And therefore I expect you to do this because I need to help around the house the way you would if you could see. I'm like, but Mom, I can't see. He's like, well, yeah, you can see, but also I can't do this alone. So you need to help me.
So how many siblings do you have? And are you the only one that's blind?
Just me, and it's not even hereditary. I was born
Wow.
2 months premature,
Mm.
so that's when I was blinded. My left eye, totally blind since birth, and my right eye, I only had 10% vision in my right eye. And so
Wow.
I'm not hereditary. I just have one sister who's 7 years younger than me, and she and her husband have two amazing daughters, both of whom are 4.6 GPA, roughly 4.4, 4.6, something like that, who are in high school, and they're class presidents of their respective classes and involved in 15 things. And I mean, it's
Nice.
it's really, but it's when I think about that and I think of just this family, it's because we were taught early to expect a lot out of our children, and so just like when my sons became Eagle Scouts, nobody expected that, but they all became
Yeah.
Scouts by age 18, even though it took everything they had and all the way till 5 minutes before to get the paperwork. They turned 18, but they got it done, and they got it done without asking for a time extension. Because I
That's a
told
huge
them,
accomplishment.
Yeah.
I told the boy,
Absolutely.
yeah, they're like, well, the leadership of council with scouting, they're like, well, Oli, if they need a time extension, let us know. We'll give them a time extension. Just ask for it. I'm like, I'm not asking. I'm not. I told them thank you, but I'm
Well,
not going
Wow.
to ask for a time extension. They better do it if
and
they're going to do it.
and that's a huge achievement, and not to take away from their achievement at all, but isn't when you get an Eagle Scout, at least in my observation and experience, a lot of the, I guess, the credit goes to parents and leaders a lot of
Yeah,
times
for sure.
because boys aren't necessarily constantly motivated, and their leaders sort of get are constantly getting them to do things, motivating them, and getting them across the line. Right.
I was
So
just thinking, yeah.
part of that's you, Oli.
Well, it was intense because they were all working on their Eagle projects at the same exact time, and they all had different projects. People were like, "Oh, did they
Yeah.
collaborate?"
Yeah.
No, they're all different. We had a blood, or he organized a blood drive that resulted in 216 people's lives being changed, and he
Wow.
also donated, blankets donated for families for kids who are in the hospital, blankets to be donated, like security blankets, that kind of thing, hundreds of blankets. And then Nick, he wanted to support children and families of domestic violence. And so
Hmm.
he facilitated the receipt of more than 5,800 sanitary supplies
Hmm.
combined with other supplies to help those families. And then Stephen did a school supply drive where it resulted in a year's worth of school supplies for, oh my gosh, dozens of kids for an entire year. And it was
That's
unreal,
awesome.
you know. And they drove it. They you know, and I also told them, you realize what an accomplishment, guys, this is going to be. And then they all
Hmm.
helped each other on their projects too, but each of them was the lead on their own projects, and then the others helped wherever they could. And the leaders were amazing sources of support, as were their fellow
Yeah.
scouts, which is exactly what leadership is supposed to be. They're not supposed to do it all themselves, you know. And so
Yeah.
I was so proud. And their eagle's nest for their court of honor had 57 eagles. I mean,
Oh,
just
wow.
Holy
unbelievable.
cow.
57 eagles in their eagle's nest, you know. Like I don't I mean, we
Wow.
had the presence of a cabinet secretary. We had media outlets there. I mean, just it was
Mm.
an unbelievable, like, all of the hundreds of people at their court of honor, and people coming in, and literally the media people were standing outside of the church building, like 15 feet apart, interviewing. There was a Spanish one. There was like several other ones, and it made its way. It literally reached 61 million people around the world. That story, from
Oh,
different
wow. That's
iterations
big.
of stuff,
Wow.
and I mean, and it's just
That's
like, wow,
incredible.
unreal. So just a lot of good memories there.
I just want to say, Oli, how much I love how proud you are of your sons. And I'm learning from you as a mentor, just being proud of your children. I think that's something I could do better. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, John. I appreciate that. I mean, fatherhood is not easy for any of us. We all
No.
learn as we go, and we all compare ourselves to other people who we think are super dads. But the fact is that we all just do our best, and that's all that can be expected of us. We just do our best. We learn. We just get better, and then as we do that, then our children get better, and we become stronger parents. And the fact is that you have the commitment that you do, and that's what results in your children growing up to become what they're becoming. And parenthood is the toughest job that we all love, And so, you
Yeah.
know, this, whether it's you know uh, kids born biologically or adoptive,
Hmm.
it's parenting is parenting. Um, it's a joy. I know for me, it's a joy of my life. It's absolutely super grateful for it.
It,
I love
I,
that. And go ahead, Jared.
I was just gonna say, well, I, it's kind of changed, but I was gonna say, it seems to me I can't help but think that you meeting those three boys, your three boys, and being in that same space and having the opportunity, it just seems more than a coincidence to me. It seems more than just by
Absolutely,
chance. What do you
yeah.
what do you think about that?
Oh, it's foreordained. There's nobody that can change my mind about that. It is absolutely
Yeah.
foreordained. I mean, for it to happen where I go to church, someone in our congregation happens to be works for a social service agency who happens to have these boys, and then then after he linked us up, he moved away. He wasn't even in part of the congregation anymore. It was for a very short time, and yet our whole lives changed. I mean, they
Hmm.
were they were victimized by bullying as little kids. They had similar struggles, similar doubts, and then for us to be a family the way we are, it's absolutely foreordained, and
Yeah,
I
it
know that
seems
for a fact. It absolutely must be. There's no other explanation.
it's amazing. Yeah, it seems so perfect to me. Just from the outside, I was like, wow, that's incredible how it happened and how it seems so meant to be. That's awesome.
And we're as close as ever. Even all these years later, even though they're grown, I still call them by their little kid names. They're
Yeah.
24, and I still call them by their name, by what I call them. Not because
Wow.
I think they're little kids, but more it's like a term of endearment.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and you obviously changed their lives, right? I mean, I read an article where they were struggling pretty bad before they met you and had some real difficulties. And for you to have those same struggles, obviously, and then to mentor them and to help them to change and to obviously thrive and become, I mean, you shaped them and made them something completely different than what they ever would have been, right?
Well, I'm grateful to have helped with that, and they've changed me also. Um, I never knew the depths of love that were possible, or the not
Mm.
depth, but the intensity of how what a parent would do. I would literally give up my life multiple times over for my son, whatever it took. Every ounce of whatever I am, I would give it up for them, no question. Um,
Now you're in the L.A. area, and at least two of them are back in Virginia, right?
yeah, they're all in Virginia.
Oh,
Yeah.
all three of them are.
Uh huh.
How is
Mm.
has that been hard? As technology, I'm sure technology makes
Yeah.
that a lot easier, but it's still quite hard for you?
I miss being with them every day. I miss being in our
Hmm.
own household and our doing things our way. Our like for Thanksgiving as a fun example, we didn't do Thanksgiving turkey. We did Thanksgiving steak, and so
Nice. Sounds
we
good.
would have apple cider, and we would go around and we would talk about what we're grateful for. Just these moments, we had everything set of the video games, the whatever, like that was our way. And then when they grew up and moved away for skills training and other stuff, and when I wanted to be here in California to support my mom and dad who are getting older, I thought, well, they're not home anyway. They're not here, and the only thing keeping me in DC was them. And now that they're gone, there's no need to stay. So I left
Mm.
and came to California, and then the rest is history. And then in the meantime, they're living their lives, and I just really am so proud of what they continue to grow up. I mean, they're grown now, but what they continue to grow to be,
Yeah.
and they continue to be the same lovable individuals that they were since when they were little, and they keep seeing the best in people and making a difference and doing a lot of really great things with their lives. And I know it's just the beginning for them. Their journey has barely even gotten started.
Just by observation, lovable is seems like a really appropriate word for them. They seem like teddy bears,
They
so
are.
kind.
They really are, and it's really just so fun to watch. And they're all three of them are very very kind, and they've had their own moments of struggle and doubt themselves with the
Yeah,
imposter syndrome and stuff. And they're finding that the very same way that I had to find out was that that we are all more than what we sometimes think we are. And when it really dawned on them individually that they really are more, then that's when they really, really, really took off. Because it's like, wow, I really do have the ability to make more of myself, of whatever I want to be, and that's literally all I've ever wanted for them. And the thing that they had to learn is that they shouldn't be motivated to just work hard to make dad proud. But I told them, look, make
yeah.
work hard and accomplish to make yourselves proud. You know, and I love you guys no matter what. No matter what, I will always love you unconditionally. And so the big thing for you all is make sure that you're driven by the desire to make a difference in the world and to do well for yourself. The two things are not mutually exclusive, like sometimes people make it seem like, oh, I don't really prioritize making money. I just want to make a difference. And I always tell my social worker friends who say stuff like that, like, hey, time out, time out. Don't you think that making more money enables you to make a bigger difference? Because then you could write bigger checks for causes you care about. You have more of an ability to provide for your family. Of course, you should make more money, and of course, you should make a difference. It doesn't mean, like people have got to realize when it comes to making money, they shouldn't feel guilty for wanting to prosper. We were all meant to prosper, and we should all do that and without apology. I mean, that's a personal opinion. It
I
doesn't mean
love
that
that.
money drives everything, but we have to also recognize that there's nothing wrong with striving to do better. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
So, do you guys have reunions?
Every 6 months,
Nice. At
yeah,
your place or theirs?
theirs.
Easier, cheaper for you to go there.
Yep, it's economics. I'd rather spend my money on stuff for our family rather than just giving it to the airline folks. Like, and plus there are times that they've been here. Like I took them to Disneyland here and other stuff.
Yeah.
But logistically, it's just easier if I just head there, and then and then from I'm sure there'll be another time when they'll come out here again. But they seem to like the East Coast better. So.
Do you miss DC at all? Do you feel like you like one or the other, California versus DC? What do you think?
From a professional standpoint, DC is a center of my field. So
Yeah.
I don't get to have those opportunities to network with people
Mm.
and rub elbows with certain people who I used to be able to. I mean, literally before, the boys were used to meeting relatively with some frequency cabinet secretaries, United States senators, United States congressmen,
Yeah.
like captains of industry,
Wow.
billionaire, like different. I mean, that's because of
Yeah.
being in DC, and it's like they say, hey, come on, come by, bring the boys. Like
Yeah.
you know, and I miss that part of it because that's to me that's really fun because the more we can build relationships, genuine relationships with people who are movers and shakers in their own area, the bigger we can make a big difference. So I miss that part of it, but the
Yeah.
social element, the truest of friends are here in California. Like the friends I left when I
Yeah.
left for DC in 2002, they're the same friends who I have now. So
Yeah.
my first my with an organization within the church. My he is now he's still a leader in the same church, and we're still he's still
Nice.
somebody I'm very close to. So I mean the
Yeah.
friendships continue to endure, which I'm grateful for.
Cool. Very cool.
Hey, Oli, didn't you get the chance to meet Stevie Wonder
Looks like
one
John
time?
is.
I did. Yeah,
I'm a
that
big
was
fan. Just I'm a huge fan of his music. How was that meeting him?
well. First, he's tall. He's he's really tall. I had no idea.
I
I'm
didn't know
like
either.
Stevie.
You were
Like
nervous?
yeah, and he's like, come here. And he gave me this big hug, and like he's so much taller, so it's like you hug him like you have your hand like this.
Oh.
It's wild.
Did
I just
did he
couldn't believe.
know anything about you?
Not much, but he, I mean, I was introduced to him by somebody who knows him, so I don't know if that came into play
Nice.
with how I met him or however way, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, I mean, I literally have listened to his music my whole life.
Yeah.
And
He's a
then I
legend.
mean, it's wild. I mean, to have had a life by now, to have met literally uh, music legends, political legends, business leaders. Like I just can't believe this life. It's like, oh my god, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Did
I
he?
want to bring up one other thing. Go ahead, Jeremy, and then I'll
Sorry. Did he
ask.
play you a tune while you were with him?
Oh no! In this case, he was walking around, looking at different technology that was
Oh, okay.
available. So he was all excited about the technology, as was I. So that was kind of more
Okay.
what we focused on.
Right on.
And I'm glad that he didn't start to sing because then if to have me sing with him, it would have been insulting. Please stop singing.
And
No,
then,
stop.
Oh, yeah.
and then for a little of the younger crowd, you met Dan Reynolds too, right? Of Imagine
Oh
Dragons.
yeah. Yep, I
That's
did.
pretty awesome.
I mean, all of
That's
them.
cool
I
too.
mean, from Imagine Dragons. Yep.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And Peter Cetera from Chicago.
Mm,
Uh,
right on.
and then
Super cool.
billionaire wise, our former Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos.
Yeah.
Um, and I got to meet um, her family, members of her family
Hmm.
who I've known from a distance or seen from a distance for a long time. It's wholly
Yeah.
surreal. Um, I
Mm,
mean, it's been really incredible. I mean, and out of the past four presidents, I mean, besides working for President George W. Bush, I also met President Obama, and
wow.
um, you, just a
Mm,
lot of these experiences. Um, and then, oh gosh, it's wild. Here in my state recently, I was just with the Governor of California, and our economy here is like the fourth, fifth largest economy in the world. And
yeah.
to meet Eleni Kounalakis here,
Mm,
it's like in a setting where like sitting at the table just having lunch, and like and then her college age son was there, and so we're just talking. I'm just like this is just whose life am I living here?
well, it sounds at this point like
It's
you're
just
just one of them,
wild.
right?
It's like, oh my gosh,
Mm,
it's just craziness. And then like our member of Congress here, every time I see her, like sometimes people are more formal, like Congresswoman, Grace Napolitano, hi Congresswoman. And then she sees me like, hi Grace, and then she's like, hello mijo, mijo Spanish for my son kind
Mm.
of thing. She's like, hi mijo, then she comes and gives me a big hug, and she goes, sit right next to me. It's like I just like, oh my gosh, this is wild. And this is
they're
like
probably they're probably thinking the same thing, right? Like, I got to meet Oli the other day,
I don't
telling
know.
everyone
Yep.
what they met Oli.
Oh, I know. It's just
Hey,
it's craziness. It's just like, I feel like every day I'm like pinching myself. Like I have to see a dermatologist from all the pinching I do of myself. Because holy smokes, like this is just wild. And then that, and to have on speed dial people from different parts of life. And like when the boys got COVID a couple of years ago, what really amazed me, what was so heartwarming, was that government leaders from 4 presidential administrations reached out to me.
Mm.
The cabinet, my cabinet secretary of education, Betsy called me. She called and spent time talking with me, asking about the boys. Um, the
Wow.
we had David Muir from ABC World News Tonight. He did a story on the boys having COVID.
mm,
We had like media people. We had appointees all the way back to the Clinton administration reaching out to me saying, "Hey, what can we do?" And it was all just on Facebook, because
Wow.
I was rallying because the 2 of the 3 boys were hospitalized with COVID. They all had COVID, but two of them were hospitalized,
Mm.
and I needed all the prayers
wow.
we could possibly get,
Mm.
and to get the support that we got from every quarter was just unreal. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where
Wow.
we come from. Wow.
Yeah, you got some good friends in high places.
I
That's pretty
guess,
powerful. That's
but yeah.
amazing.
So I'm
Cool.
just every day just filled with gratitude, and we all can live lives of lives of extraordinary purpose, no matter who we are. And the thing is, it's funny because there are people who I privately support with their career development, and I coach them on how to do better. And I've literally helped facilitate various people making 6-figure incomes who didn't have them before,
Mm.
and I'm just grateful. I just stay
Cool.
in the background and I'm just, hey, congratulations, so happy that you're doing well. I mean, I just love it. I mean, it's all a matter of this loving every day, being of service, also recognizing for me personally, because of my own faith, I'm a believer in the Lord and Savior, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and testify that He is my personal Savior, and that my wanting to be as Christ-like as possible is what drives me every day. I want to be more.
Mm,
I'm never enough, and
Mm.
part of my eternal progression is also optimizing my time on Earth, so that by the time I leave, that I can say that the world was better because I was here for a little while. I mean, that's
Yeah.
ultimately what drives me. People have different faiths, and I embrace them too. And for me, this is my faith and something that I wear proudly, and I'm just so grateful for that fact. That
Yeah.
we have God as a source of love and inspiration for us.
Amen.
I hope we get lots of people to watch this and listen to this because there's a whole bunch of incredibly inspiring moments with you today,
Yeah.
Oli. Thank you so much for your
Oh,
friendship and
thank you,
for,
God.
for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you, John and Jeremy. I'm really grateful. I mean, anything I can do to be of support to folks, I'm here, and I just, if there's any parting message that I would leave, it would basically be that we should all live with passion. We should live with passion and purpose, and to recognize that no matter how hard things may have been, it doesn't mean that things have to stay that way. And it does, and the things that we may have had in the past where we've had struggle, that could literally be what paves the way for the greatness to come. And so,
Mm.
my warmest wishes to everybody who hears this, wherever it travels, and my thanks to you guys, because as you continue to have conversations with people from every background, then people around will say, "Gosh, we can learn extraordinary lessons from people from with whoever they are." And as we learn from one another, that's how we become stronger as a world community, and that's what we should always strive for. So,
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you for
That's
saying that.
awesome. Hmm.
And there's a number of places you can be found. Ollie Cantos, Instagram,
mm-hmm.
oliecantos.com, on LinkedIn. Just look you up, Google you on the news, all over the place.
He's
If you want
everywhere.
to see a timeline of his life, oliecantos.com/history. I
Yeah.
mean, all kinds of
Check
good
him out.
stuff.
Check him out. It's awesome.
And I
It's
love to
Awesome
make
stuff.
friends with anybody who comes our way. I mean, whatever we can do for any individual, family, organization, company, whatever, we're ready to be of help, and I'm grateful for whatever that opportunity may be as future chances present themselves.
Well, you've touched my heart today. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Me
Thank
too.
you guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
guys so
much.
much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you ever need anything from us, Ollie, give us a call.
You guys are the best.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks
Ollie.
so much.
Have a great
Thank
night.
you. You too.
Have a wonderful Christmas next week as
Yeah.
well.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
See you
Okay.
later.
See you, my
Take
friend.
care.
Wow.